All right, so I'm excited to be back here today with my friend Bree Noble. So Bree has been in the music industry for a long time now. After she left her corporate job to pursue her music career full time, she for about 7 years toured full time as a singer songwriter, released 3 albums. She won multiple awards. She even performed at the national anthem at Dodger Stadium for over 60,000 people. And she founded the Women in Substance Radio, which is an online station that helps promote female artists, and turned it into a podcast. And she rebranded her company to The Profitable Musician. And I'm really excited to have her on the podcast today because we're going to talk about that exactly, about how to, in the music industry in particular, it can be a challenging place to focus on creating a career and have a sustainable income. And I know for a lot of musicians, that's one of their biggest questions is like, how do I actually make an income when Spotify pays so little? So Bree, thank you so much for coming on the podcast again today to talk a little bit about how to help artists not be a starving artist and actually make a sustainable income with their music.
Thank you. I know that's a big focus for you as well. So I'm glad to be here. And as I told Michael earlier, I've got a cough. So I've got a cough drop going on. So hopefully that won't be a problem. But I've got a nice, slow, sexy, like my voice has dropped about 1 octave.
Sounds good. Yeah, we were joking. I mean, it was like dark humor. We were getting dark humor. It's like every time you cough, he was talking like violence was included. Like no high pressure stakes here, but like every cough represents like a child dying. So no pressure. But anyways, circling back around, I probably didn't even need to bring up the dark humor. Like I was kick things off. We're gonna talk about something really positive. But first, let's talk about. But maybe you could briefly share your story as it relates to building a successful music career and also just understanding how you're able to go from help artists go from starving artists to actually making a sustainable income with their music.
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing about what I do is it really isn't inside the music industry. I never really ever set foot inside, quote, the music industry. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because there's so many more opportunities and options outside of what people think of as the traditional music industry. So, I grew up, I loved choirs. I was in all these choirs when I was in high school. That really got me into music and singing. And it's so fun now because my daughter is a freshman in high school and she's in this really amazing choir and they're going to get to go to Carnegie Hall this year. And so it's like, I remember, how I really got hooked on music by doing so many choirs in high school and solo competitions and things. And then I went to college and was getting a degree in music in vocal performance. And about halfway through, I got super practical and I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this degree in music. And so maybe I should get also a degree in business because I really liked numbers and stuff like that. And I've always been kind of entrepreneurial. And so I got a double degree in music, vocal performance, and then business, and kind of focused on accounting and management. And when I left college, I really still had no idea how I was going to use my music degree. They gave me no help whatsoever. So I immediately started going to work in accounting because I knew how to get a job in accounting. And I worked in accounting for several years. And then I really wasn't excited about where I was working. And of course, I love the arts. I love music. I wanted to work in the arts. And so I managed to find a position as director of finance at an opera company and one of the top 15 opera companies in the US. So that was really cool. I never wanted to sing opera really as a main focus, but I really enjoyed being around all the people in the arts and really putting amazing things on the stage. But the thing with it was I still wanted to have a music career myself. And so here I was writing all these checks to all these amazing opera artists that were like living their dream. Actually, the biggest check I ever wrote was $250,000 check to Placido Domingo, which was pretty cool. But I'm like, here I am writing all these checks.
Oops, actually, I wrote my own name.
Oh, yeah, darn it. I know. And it's like, but what I really want to be doing is what they're doing, not on the opera stage, but as a singer-songwriter. And I started to get really frustrated because I saw all these people living their dreams and being the artists they wanted to be and creating their legacy in the world. And I was just in the back room writing checks. So I started figuring out how am I going to pursue my own music career. And that was definitely a journey. I struggled a lot. I was trying to like be in all these bands because I thought, well, I'm not good enough or cool enough on my own to draw an audience. I knew I was a good singer. I thought I was a decent songwriter. I could play a little keyboard, but I just didn't feel confident in myself. And so I was constantly trying to like fit myself into these other bands that I would find on the recycler, which is kind of like the classifieds for musicians in LA. And they were just always a disaster. Like it just, oh, I was in this one. I mean, first of all, the fit was terrible. Like I'm a singer songwriter in like an adult contemporary style. I can also sing classical and Broadway and stuff like that, and Christian. And here I was like in this band of like four other guys doing like hard rock just because I wanted to be on stage, And I was just like, this is not working out. And then I was in this all female group. It was like early 2000s alternative style music, trying to be, one of those early 2000s, all kind of like what Michael's group was when he was out there performing. And we were trying to be the female version of that. And it was just, it wasn't me, it wasn't using my talents. And I felt like I was trying to turn myself into something that I wasn't. And so once I finally just decided, like, I got so frustrated that I'm like, I don't even care if I have a big career in music. Like if I get signed, if I'm, on all these big stages, I just want to do stuff in music and I don't care what it looks like. And once I kind of said that and stopped trying to like mold myself into something that I wasn't and embrace the brand that I actually was and the kind of music that I was actually good at creating, that was really when I started making headway. And the other thing that I did is that I started thinking about myself as a business. I stopped thinking of myself as a musician solely, because what I would do is, even though I had this business career, like this business head on my shoulders and all this experience in business and, running an $8.5 million opera company, as soon as started working on my music, I just started thinking like a starving artist, started thinking like a musician, where I like had to get the right people's attention and things like that. And so once I was like, okay, well, what if I just ran this as if I, just opened a bakery or a coffee shop down the street? Like, how would I get attention? And, how would I start building a following and all that kind of stuff? And that's really when my career turned a corner, because I stopped caring about being part of the traditional music industry and I started thinking about it more like a business. And at that point, I just started building my following slowly and started booking myself, started in smaller venues, and I started booking. I actually created a presentation where I would tell stories and also sing. And then I had a program to book, and so I started booking myself at a lot of different smaller conferences and churches and women's groups and things like that. And that's really when things took off for me. And I know we'll get into some of the nitty gritty on this in a minute, but I just wanted to kind of finish how I ended up here. As I was out there performing and meeting all these other female artists like myself, it's like, wow, there's so many amazing female artists. Why am I not hearing them on the radio, on Sirius XM? This is before Spotify was really big. But I was like, why am I not hearing them? And so I started this thing called Women of Substance, which was an online radio station. It became a podcast, and it was just all about creating a platform for great female artists. And we're still doing that today. I just recorded episode number 1570, I believe.
Wow.
So yeah, it's kind of crazy. We put out shows about 10 shows a month. And then that just kind of snowballed into, I was dealing with all these female artists. A lot of them didn't have any support. They didn't know how to market themselves. They didn't really have any clue about how to run their music as a business. And they started asking me a lot of questions. And that's when I, started working with female artists and started my podcast, The Female Entrepreneur Musician. And I started that in 2015, and that brand eventually grew into The Profitable Musician. I had several summits where I was helping musicians make more money from music and So that's kind of our umbrella brand now, but I still very much focus on female artists. So we have resources that help all artists, but I love having a community specifically for female artists because a lot of us, I remember being there, are very much an island and we feel like we don't know who we can trust. We don't know where to get advice and stuff like that. And we just don't have a lot of support sometimes, maybe from our spouse, our family, our parents, whatever. They might not believe in us. And so that's kind of what I love to do, is to just really raise up women in music.
Mm.
That was a lot.
Wow.
Sorry.
It was a lot, but it was amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I mean, it's a good reminder of. It seems like where things really started to gain traction for you is when you stopped you're trying to be somebody else and you started to fully embrace who you are, and the music came out of that, and also like your business acumen came out of that. You found ways to actually build a sustainable business out of it that weren't necessarily the traditional way that you thought it should be or people would have expected. I'm personally interested. I mean, I'm fascinated by this question of like our roots versus like our transformations, our identity, our ideal identity, and sort of that contrast between being yourself and being who you are, and also setting goals and like wanting to become someone else and transforming. And I'd be curious to hear your perspective on that as it relates to finding your own power and kind of coming into yourself, as well as setting goals. And how do you find that balance? Because like on one end of the spectrum, if the final outcome was just completely be yourself, then we would do nothing, or we wouldn't grow, or we wouldn't evolve, we wouldn't change, because it's like, okay, cool, like I'm me and like and that's it. But like at the same time, there's this like paradox, because like you evolve and you transform, but maybe it's like it's still you like the whole time. So I'm just kind of curious to hear your perspective as it relates to if someone has big dreams and they're not where they want to be yet. How do you recommend that they authentically express themselves and come from a place of them being who they are, while also being able to plug into maybe their goals of who they're becoming and their ideal transformation?
Yeah, totally. I mean, number one, you have to get out of your comfort zone and you have to do it scared. There is going to be a lot of scary moments. And so one of the reasons that I was always trying to like, grab onto the coattails of other bands is that I wanted to be safe. I thought, well, let me just fit myself into something they already have, because then I don't have to put myself out there. I can just kind of, just not hide in the background, but like, show off my talents, but not have to like be the center of attention, and also not have to do the work of figuring out who I am outside of myself, like to the world, right? What can I give? How can I inspire people that is different from others? And that means that you have to really look into yourself and be willing to like talk about things that are uncomfortable. I think that's where, when I started doing my songs and stories, it was a personal journey kind of program, and talking about things that I went through as a child, and, just like perseverance and like learning how to overcome obstacles and stuff like that. And I knew that that would be helpful to other people, but it was also helpful to me to put all that down and have to say it in front of other people, because then I couldn't hide anymore, And so I think one thing that I learned is like doing it before you're ready. Because certainly the first time that I ever did that program, I was not ready, and I was a bit shaky and all that. But I did it in front of a room of 50 people and not 500, or like, if your first interview that you do is on a very small podcast, that's better. Like give yourself a chance to get comfortable in front of the microphone. And so like another thing that I was really uncomfortable about was I didn't think that I could play and sing by myself. So that's like I was in a band and I could keep up with the keyboard. I learned how to play and sing while in a band with the keyboard, but I knew that if for some reason I got lost, I dropped out, whatever, I played a wrong chord, it would keep going. Like it wasn't all up to me. But then I found it very difficult to book myself with a band because all my bandmates had jobs and they weren't looking to be full-time musicians. And so I couldn't book myself on tour. And so I'm like, I have
Mm,
to solve this problem. I have to figure this out. And so I was devoted to figuring out how to play and sing in a way that I was comfortable in doing it. Now, I booked my first gig doing that before I felt comfortable because you got to
mm,
book out, right? Like I booked out 3 months because otherwise you won't, especially if you're doing conferences and things like that, you got to book out. And so I booked it even though I wasn't ready. And I'm like, I have a
mm,
fallback plan. Like I can use tracks if as much as I need to, if I have to. I don't want to, but I will. Or I can play along with a track or whatever. But then I spent every day, at least 30 minutes a day working on it. And so I set a goal that I couldn't back out of because I had booked myself. So
mm,
I think that's really what has worked for me a lot because if you wait for it to be perfect, either then you'll be like having to wait too long, right? Because now you got it perfect. Okay, now I'm going to book. Oh, now they're already booked up for the next 6 months, and then you're going to go stale. Your excitement is going to wane.
mm,
So you got to book and then get ready. And I'm
mm,
not saying like don't book when you've never performed anywhere before. Like go out there and do some open mics or whatever. Get your experience. But I had experience, but this one thing was holding me back. And so I just said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to set this goal and I'm going to set it in stone. I can't back out now and I'm going to figure it out. And I think that
mm,
that's really what's moved me forward. When I started my academy, my female musician academy, there was nothing inside. Like I'd created no courses or anything. And
mm,
I was just like, I'm going to create this thing. Who wants to come on this journey with me? And I had never created a course before, but I did it because I believed that I could, and I knew
mm,
that I'd figure it out. And with the pressure of people, putting up their hand and saying, I want to do it, and putting out their wallet and saying, I believe in you, here's some money, that gave me the goal and the pressure to get it done. And I did it. And now I've created tons of courses, so that first one's always the hardest, and you got to kind of raise the stakes on yourself.
mm. Super powerful. Yeah. So it sounds like, this heart of getting started before you feel ready, before it's
Mhm.
perfect, because, if you don't do that, then it's, spoiler alert, it's never perfect. Like it's never
Yep.
going to be perfect. And the fear can kind of come, it can cause you to push it out and you can lose interest, waning interest. So starting by throwing your hat over the fence, having accountability has been something that's really helped you to actually show up and kind of face the fear and make stuff happen. I've found the
Yep.
exact same thing true in my own life. And, that's generally how all the movement happens in my own life is like I said, accountability, I set goals, and then I like throw my head over the fence or I have to do it. So one question in particular, I'd be curious to hear from your experience, because I know that a lot of artists who are listening to this right now might be going through something similar where they have a day job or they have sort of a something that's currently paying the bills or supporting them, and maybe their dream is to make a transition like you made from corporate life to actually going all in on your music. I'm assuming that when you made that transition, it wasn't like immediately you had a super successful career and like everything's figured out, but it was more so like you talked about with making a decision to do it, believing in yourself, then then making that decision. But I'd be curious to hear your perspective on that specific decision. And for someone that's listening to this right now, who maybe they're interested in making that leap of faith themselves, but they're just trying to figure out the best way to do that. How do you encourage them to think about moving from a corporate job or another job to doing their music full time?
Yeah, I mean, I don't encourage artists to jump without a net. I had a net.
Mm,
So, I was
mm,
making actually more than my husband at the time because he was a new professor. And I was like, I can't do this unless I know for sure that there's something to cover me if it doesn't, if it takes a while, right?
mm,
And it does. It took me a while once I really started booking myself, it took me a year to be to the point where like I was getting all these referrals and I didn't have to make a million cold calls and stuff like that. And it becomes a cycle, right? You get
Mm.
rebookings and all that. You got to know that you got to have at least a year or two where you're not going to have this solid ground. And so having something to fall back on for us, it worked out that it was that time in the housing market in California where things were really going up quickly. And so we were able to sell our house and we had this, seed of money. So if we needed to dip into it, we could. And that was really, really helpful because I think I don't encourage artists to just like jump out entirely on faith because then you get this desperation and like the smell of desperation. Like you can tell. I remember like
Mm.
interviewing people in corporate and I could tell when someone really needed this job,
Mm.
and it was like a weird, uncomfortable feeling. Even though, I mean, I'm thinking to myself, well, like there's nothing wrong with them needing this job. But somehow it made it feel kind of strange. Whereas the person that comes in that already has a job and they're like, oh, here's my qualifications, like not take it or leave it, but like I'm good if you don't choose me. And I
Mm.
think I think that's where artists get in trouble because you're like, I'm gonna, throw everything in and all that stuff. And then like you only have 3 months rent. And then if
Mm.
things don't go well out the gate, then you're going to be approaching bookings in a much more desperate position. And people are going to be able to tell, and they're going to wonder why it is that you don't have your bookings filled already. And that's going to make them, well, maybe they're really not that good. Maybe they sound good on a recording, but when they're live, they're not very good. Why don't they have a full schedule? That kind of thing. So if you can do what I did and I lucked out, that's great. But if not, then keep a part-time job. Keep a way to feel stable because you're not going to make good decisions unless you have like a solid foundation under you. You're going to be like flailing and making bad choices and doing things just because you need the money versus it making sense for your career. So, yeah, I mean, I don't recommend people just go cold turkey and jump into the pool, without anything.
Mm. Yeah, that's a super helpful perspective just from the standpoint. Yeah, the analogy of like, if you want to learn how to swim, there's good ways you can learn how to swim. I mean, you're not going to do a very good job learning how to swim if you're just kind of like dipping your toes in the water and you're like, oh, like, should I not? So it's always better to like actually get in the pool jump into the pool as quickly as possible. But if you don't know how to swim, jumping into the deep end of the pool by yourself in particular is not necessarily what you'd recommend because you could drown. So it's nice to have like a life vest on, so like you can jump in and you know that you have the net. In worst case scenario, you're going to be okay, and that's going to help you come from a place where you're less desperate. You don't need it as much, which will change just how you show up. Super interesting. Yeah. And yeah, if you have like another way to sort of have like a safety net is sort of if you have someone like yourself or you have a mentor or someone that can teach you how to swim like while you're in the pool, and like worst case scenario, like you're they're going to be able to help keep you up. Okay, so we do have live audiences here right now.
Hmm.
And I think it would be kind of fun to invite one of them onto stage to be able to ask a question specifically as it relates to what you just shared, Bree, and specifically as it relates to having a profitable, sustainable business as a musician in today's day and age. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask Bree, feel free to raise your hand to come up here live on stage. I see Vaz's hand up, so let's bring on Vaz. Hey, Vaz, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Michael, and thank you so much. And Bree, thank you. We appreciate you coming here. Could you expound on some of the experiences you've had with your clients on how you've mentored them as Michael is, attempting to mentor us in a practical experience that could give us some direction and sense of meaning for our own individual, how it fits into our own individual lives. Thank you.
Thanks,
Sure. Thank
Boz.
you. So, a lot of the mentoring that I do is on the marketing side, similar to what Michael does. I am a very big proponent of email. And when I started my Women of Substance, I was luckily very smart, and I started an email list immediately, and I got every artist that I was working with on Women of Substance on my email list. And so then when I started my coaching and mentoring, I had a huge list already, right, of women who might need my help. And so that's really what allowed me to make that easy transition. And so I really do believe in email lists for whatever business that you have. When I was, a freelance musician, I had started an email list for that as well. And that is how I really was able to get that cycle of booking continuous, because I was in front of them constantly. Once a week, I would send an email about something that I was doing. So they would see that I was doing stuff, that I was active. I would, share some things from some events that I had done, some photos, like that kind of stuff. And I would get bookings just because I was on top of mind for them. When they suddenly, they were an event coordinator or whatever, they were having a retreat, they needed somebody, they automatically thought of me because I was in their inbox. So that's some of what I work with, especially with my private clients, is helping them with their email. Staying consistent is such a hard thing because you've got a busy schedule as an artist. You're touring, you're writing music, you're recording, like there's so many moving pieces, and staying consistent with that email is hard, but it's so worth it because you are building up assets that are going to feed your business for years to come. I have people that were with me from 2006 when I started performing, and they are still remembering me. They're still, sending me messages on social media and things like that because I nurtured that in the beginning. So I'd say number one is making sure that you stay consistent with your email list, and also having kind of an entry sequence of some kind to really like deepen that relationship immediately and quickly. So when they first get on your list, having a sequence where they're really getting to know you, because at that is the point when they are the most excited, right? So you may as well really, don't feel bad about sending them 3 or 4 emails, one a day when they first come in, because they've just discovered your music or they just seen you live. They're so excited about it and they want to know more. And they're not going to be like, stop emailing me. Like they signed up for this email list. They want to know about you. So I think, practical advice, I think that's some of the best advice that I can give you is, be out there on social media and stuff, but the way that you're going to really deepen the relationship is through email. So make sure that everywhere that you are, whether it's social media, it's live streaming, it is in person, that you have a way to get people to sign up on your email list and that you remember to ask them to do it. That's something that I work with artists. Let's set up a QR code. Let's figure out how you can get this into your slides if you're doing a presentation. Let's figure out how we can, put this more prevalently on your website or in your, live streams that you're doing online. And a lot of times artists just are so focused on all the other things that they aren't thinking about that, and they are missing out on a million opportunities.
Amazing. Yeah, that's so good. You're speaking my language for sure. And you know that. I mean, emails, a huge, cornerstone of building a successful online, business. Speaking of which, I think a great question I'd love to hear your perspective on is, and for a lot of artists, they might have the similar question, is like, how do you invite people to join your email list in a way that isn't, hey, like join my monthly newsletter?
Yeah.
Because you want me to email you, but like, how do you position it, and how do you actually invite people to join your email list in a way that works?
I think the biggest thing is exclusive content, exclusivity, or maybe even just getting to know things before other people. For me, like I join newsletters because I want to know when they're going to be in my city. Like I want to see them perform.
Mm.
So if you're a performer, even just saying that might be enough. Like,
Mm.
hey, like we let people know when we're going to be nearby so you can get tickets, or we'll be offering like an exclusive like experience, after party experience just for people on our email list, like that kind of thing. An exclusive, content, like maybe once a month you send out a behind the song video that's like only to your email list. Or I think it's less, back in the day it was like, oh, get a free download, right? That's not that exciting anymore. So you got to be more creative. And in the early times when you're only getting like one person to join your email list a day, like unless you're doing a show where you're getting a bunch, but you can literally like send them a video and say like, I want to like personally welcome you to my email list. I'm going to send you a video, and tell them that. And then just send a personal video that says, hey, this is Bree. I'm so excited you're on my, email list. Like, I can't wait to get to know you. Whatever you want to say. You could even like, I don't know, put a like fun fact about yourself that you don't talk about all the time, and make it feel exclusive.
Mm.
So I think that's the biggest thing. Be creative, be on brand if you can, like come up with something that you offer that's really on brand for you, and make it exclusive or getting the scoop before everybody else.
Mm. Awesome. Yeah, super smart. And so basically having an exclusive resource or something that the only place to get it is, you're going to send it to their email inbox. Yeah, it definitely seems like, as in the music industry in particular, like, fans, they love being able to get early access to songs before they're released, somewhere publicly. So lots of cool stuff you can do with having a private community.
Yeah, or you could even, do like a reverse engineering type thing. So like maybe you're on stage and you just perform this awesome song, and then afterward you say like, hey, like, want to hear like the original demo of that song, or want to hear an acoustic version that we don't normally play, like here's the QR code, and you can get access to that.
Cool. All right. Awesome. So let's say that someone is doing a good job now of inviting people to join their email list. They have a QR code when they're performing live. They have a good incentive or resource. People are actually joining. How do they take people who are subscribers and actually offer them things and sell them things in a way that doesn't come across as like overly salesy or pitchy, but in a way that actually allows them to make sales and to provide value to their fans?
Yeah, I mean, I think if people are on your list because they do want to know about your stuff, so like don't be shy. Just make it fun, like also get them involved in the creation process. So maybe you're creating some new merch and you email out like, hey, here are the 3 like shirt designs that we're thinking of. Which one do you like best? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or even like do a contest with them. Like, hey, if you're a designer, like we're looking for shirt designs. Like if you know, send us your ideas, and if yours wins you get XYZ, you get some bundle or something, so then like people are involved in the creation process, and then when it comes out they're excited. I see this a lot, like even with my daughter, like she pre-ordered something like 2 months ahead or something because she really loved this creator and she wanted this thing that they made and they were hyping it up. And people are willing to do that. They want to be in the process of creation. And then when it gets there, they're going to be excited. Then they're be on social media showing that they're wearing it, that kind of thing. I think offering experiences, especially like after show or pre-show kind of get-togethers or like green room or whatever, that's the type of thing people are on your email list for. So I don't think you have to feel like you're salesy if you're offering them that, or that you're telling them that you're performing. Like that's why they're there. What I would do is, like I said, that intro sequence, I would definitely offer them something in there. Cause like I said, that's when they're the hottest, is when they first come in, they first discovered you, and they want something to remember you by or continue the relationship. And back in the day when we would like sell CDs at shows, that could be that thing. Like people would be at the show. They're like, oh my gosh, I love this. I want to take something home to remember it by and to be able to listen to. And I sold a ton of CDs that way. Now we don't have that as much anymore, but I think we can use merch and things like that to continue that connection. And also if you give them like a lot of value on the front end, if you're offering them maybe some free exclusive stuff in your initial sequence, then when they get to the end and you offer them something to buy, a lot of times they'll be like, wow, I've gotten so much from this artist. I totally want to support them. And they will buy it. So it's that reciprocity, that feeling like, well, I feel like I should support them because they've already given me so much.
Super smart. One thing that you just reminded me of in terms of the CDs and offering a CD after a show. But one thing I'm really excited about that we've started to fulfill for our artists is we're kind of bouncing between a few different ideas for names for them. We've thought about calling them music cards, VIP cards, inner circle cards. But the idea is that you could actually do exactly what you're saying, like have an exclusive piece of content, like an exclusive song or an exclusive demo or video. And when someone holds it up next to their phone, it goes bloop and basically automatically redirects them to the portal where they can access, this exclusive content. And I think this would be a really interesting item to be able to have it, at live shows, because someone could actually get something exclusive and something you could sign as well.
Yeah.
And something that's like a link to your community so that they can scan, they can enter your community. Maybe there's some sort of gamification around it where they can get points to be able to, to do meaningful things in your community, where they can request songs and, submit, use their points to be able to unlock things. So we're kind of exploring that right now, but these cards are kind of cool. And I think it would go really nicely with all the stuff that you've been talking about, Bree.
Yeah, that's fun. I like that.
Cool. All right. Well, Bree, it's been awesome connecting with you again. Thank you for coming on here and sharing your story and for everything that you're doing to help, inspire and help artists to be able to do music full time. You are sort of like in that analogy with the learning how to swim. Like you're like a coach who's like helping people jump, like have courage to jump into the pool, helping them to learn how to swim so they don't drown. So it's very appreciated. And, for everyone that's here right now that is interested in learning more about, the resources that you offer, what would be the best place for them to go to dive deeper?
Yeah, profitablemusician.com. On the front page there, we have our 39 little known streams of income that you probably haven't considered as a musician. And then, of course, our podcast there, we have had 120 episodes of the Profitable Musician Show. So you can just click on podcast there and you'll access so many different. What we focus on the show is really offering people ideas on streams of income or ways to be more profitable as a musician.
Awesome. Cool. I don't know if anyone listening to this podcast is like interested in, podcasts.
No, I don't think so.
Where's my... There we go. So I was like, it's a very dramatic, like, different ones side by side, the different vibe entirely. Cool. Well, like always, we'll put the links in the show notes for easy access. And Bree, let's do a virtual round of applause. Thank you for coming on the show today. It's been super, super valuable.
Thank you.
Yeah!